Assalamu alaikum. It means peace be on you. We trust God for the results of all of our works. We praise Him, we believe in Him, and we seek His guidance. I will begin with a kind of thought on just what we've come out of. And I believe that what we've come out of, or coming out of, because for many of us I think we're not out of it, we're coming out of it though I believe, is a time when we were influenced to think of our individual selves as the only concern that we should respect. And in so doing that, giving in to that kind of influence, too many of us lost the value of self, respect for self, and became very, very self-destructive. This condition is still on too many of us in the big cities of the North, and also on the West Coast, and East Coast, and I would think perhaps to some degree in the South too, the tendency to be self-destructive. I'm not feeling too bad about that time. I think we had to come away from other concerns and be brought home to ourselves, to be concerned about ourselves, to care about ourselves, to the extent perhaps of even ignoring other very important concerns: home life, respect for family. I was watching a program on television, CNN it was, and one of the news reporters addressed the decade of the 80s, pardon me, the 80s, which just ended a year or so, or 2 years ago, as a decade of the me decade, M-E, the me decade. And I feel that that decade was something that not only the masses of people slipped into, but something that our leaders slipped into also. And I repeat that I'm not condemning it. I think it was something that had to happen because we had lost focus. We had lost focus on home life and lost focus on neighborhood pride and national pride. And there was no other way to go, I don't think, except but just to be wrapped up in ourselves. The religious establishment been hurt by that. And many other of our fine institutions that care for the condition of human life and the direction of human life been hurt by that. But thank God, there's always some institutions, some religious groups that stay in touch with the basic values, stay in touch with the strength of their religion or the strength of their principles. And because of that, we don't lose the whole society while we are coming through periods of change that bring us to care about nothing but ourselves. Recently, a college student doing a paper asked, have we achieved what we set out to achieve? This question was directed to us as Muslims. We haven't had a chance yet to reply to the student, but we are preparing an answer replying to that student. Most likely, this has been asked of others and of their efforts during this series of presentations, beginning with the presentation given by Dick Gregory. I'm sure that the question or the thought at least has come up, have we achieved what we set out to achieve? It becomes difficult to keep what we set out to achieve with the turn of events piling up on yesterday's problems, new problems. Yesterday, in the agonies of our troubles, we all saw our efforts in the focus of the freedom movement. We didn't belong to the civil rights movement as Muslims. Perhaps we belonged more to the nationalist movement, but we all thought of ourselves as belonging to the freedom movement. And the time given for this address, the question, where do we go from here, will have reference to the freedom movement. Now, of the movement, or the freedom movement, we ask, have we achieved what we set out to achieve? Some set out to achieve freedom in the context of democratic, non-racist law or legal system for society. Freedom from all forms of oppression. The burden of being, quote, I put black in quotes because I have some differences with the use of certain language. I have a psychology of my own, maybe a philosophy of my own, that makes me dislike using certain charged words like black and white. The burden of being black in the South and in the North was more than a crisis for legislature and a crisis for the legal system of the nation and for the instruments of government. It was a crisis for the souls of the people on both sides of the color dividing line. It was a problem, a crisis in the souls of the victims and also the victimizers. Those who were consciously victimizing and those who were going along with it or unconscious of it on the side of the white side. And also for the black side, victims who have suffered a crisis in the soul, right in the soul. I don't see us being able to correct the wrongs that's being done right now in this day and time in the name of racism or under the cover of racism or race consciousness without us addressing the state of the souls of African Americans and European Americans. Freedom, as we have sought it in that context, the freedom protected by the law, is, in my opinion, finished unless something new develops to make it important again. I don't think we need to look anymore to legislature to advance or to protect our freedoms unless something develops to present a problem, and that will happen. But the attention should be given now to the souls of the people. This might sound to you vague. What can we do about the souls of the people? We can do a lot about the souls of the people. When we start to search our own selves, to search our own thinking, to criticize our own thinking, to look for trouble in our own thinking, to look into our own thinking to see how much our own thinking is influenced by those things, those influences and those ideas that we ourselves are hurt by and reject. Many times we ourselves are affected by the things that we are fighting. And the long period of race troubles in America has brought about a poisoning of the souls of our people, African American people, a poisoning of our souls that shouldn't be there, because most of us, when we are questioned, we will stand firmly and say we don't believe in racism, we don't believe in making a person's color or a person's race a reason for a different treatment. So I'm sure that what is going on in us is something that we are not aware of, or something that we don't have a grip on. And the invitation that I'm making now, that I see as a solution, is an invitation for us to muster the moral courage in the name of success, security and success for the life we've chosen. The life that you've chosen may be different from the life that I've chosen, but whatever life we choose for ourselves, we want to secure it. If we choose it, we must care about it. So whatever life we've chosen for ourselves, we should want to secure it. We should want to progress it. We should want to see healthy change and more progress for ourselves in that life. So I'm inviting us to not to think that we are in good shape internally. I believe that we are not in good shape internally. I'm speaking of the majority of us, and that is why we are having a lot of problems. This invitation is given to both the races. I'm not speaking just to my race. I'm inviting the other race too, to look internally, to look at yourself internally. This problem that I'm pointing to, and one race can't correct it for another. The African American people are not the ones to correct what is wrong in the souls of the European Americans, or the quote, white people. Likewise, the whites are not the ones to correct what is wrong in our souls. That is, I'm not saying that we don't benefit each other. Certainly we benefit each other. I've gotten help from white people, and I'm sure there are white people that I've had conversations with, and I'm sure they've gotten some help from me. We can benefit each other, but the real problem of race consciousness that is negative, and that makes for trouble in our lives, I don't think that should be corrected, or we should seek a correction by bringing our solutions to another race, or they bring their solutions to us. And not only that, but us as individuals, we cannot depend on our movements to correct that for us. We'll get help from our movements, we'll get help from our religions, from our church, or from our mosque, or whatever. We'll get help from our religious teachings. We'll get help from the efforts in the society to address this problem of race consciousness, excessive race consciousness, or negative race consciousness in us. But the best help is going to come from ourselves when we ourselves begin to be suspicious of our own thinking, that perhaps there's something wrong in my thinking. When we start to do that, I think we're going to get some real help. Where do we go from here? I'm going to, in addition to that invitation, I'm going to address some attitudes that I think present real problems for us. And they're not problems only in African American people, but in other people, and most of the people, not only here in America, but I think in most of the world. We need to return, or maybe we've never even been there, we need to have the right attitude toward creation, I believe that we are seeing the great movement of universal concerns, global trends, if you're familiar with that expression, in the life of the world, starting with business, economics, government, but in every aspect of life. I believe that we are beginning to feel the effect of these global trends, these universal trends. And it's bringing in a time, these trends, this new global condition that is coming in, is bringing about time that won't permit individuals, groups, whether they're religious or not religious, political, whatever, to survive, not to mention even prosper, but not even to survive, without change of attitude, a change of attitude toward creation. We need a change of attitude toward work, a change of attitude toward work. We have been conditioned to think work is a burden, work is a drudgery, work is something that I have to do. Work should be something we want to do. Work should be something we love to do. I know the problems of unemployment, not enough jobs, but maybe a lot of that problem, the problem of not enough jobs, the problem of not enough employment, the problem of not enough business, maybe that problem itself is due to bad attitude. Bad attitude, in part, in big part, is due to bad attitudes toward creation, bad attitudes toward work, bad attitudes toward property. Most of us who've come up in families that believed in God, believed in some scripture, we have been taught most likely a respect for everything, a respect for everything. But we are the few. We are the few. The great many have never been taught that respect. And especially since the me decade, since the time of the me decade and even till now, we have not been taught that kind of respect. And I believe that we have a special problem as African Americans because the circumstances behind us that we have inherited the poison of, the bad effects of, did not encourage respect for creation, did not encourage respect for property, did not encourage respect for work. Many of us tend to think that we have been forced to work. We think back to the days of slavery, forced labor. And even in times of after slavery, times of freedom, we thought of that labor as something we had to do, work, something we had to do. And many of us disliked doing it because we thought we were being robbed, even though we were being paid, that our work was more for the whites than it was for us. more for the boss than it was for us. And that perhaps is true, but that's not really a problem for African Americans and European Americans. When you become acquainted with the world, you'll find that that's a problem of an attitude of a boss toward his worker. Now, the system that we have here, affected negatively by race consciousness, a negative, poisonous race consciousness, contribute to the mistreatment of the employed person by the employer, but that's not the explanation. The explanation is that bosses will have wrong attitudes toward their workers. And that will go on and go on and go on. And we don't expect to see a change there. Bosses will always have their opinion of their workers, opinion of the person that's doing work for them. I think we have realized a lot of improvement in attitudes, the way we look at perception and attitudes regarding classes, colors, etc. And we have a lot of progress to make, but we have made a lot of progress. And I think that if we can encourage each other to question our thinking and attitudes and favor those that thinking and those attitudes that favor us securing the life we choose and progressing the life we choose, we'll get into a good situation. We'll get into a very good situation. When I was a little boy in my house with my mother, I used to hear her. She'd wake up before we awake. She would wake us up most of the time. She would be the one to wake us up. She'd be in the kitchen cooking. Maybe she'd be cleaning the vegetables, preparing the vegetables to cook them or something, or whatever. She wasn't frying eggs. Now you might say, well, breakfast. She was preparing vegetables, yes, or maybe getting ready to bake some bread. We had a different kind of eating habit. We didn't eat eggs and bacon and foods like that in the morning. We would have wheat bread, homemade rolls. We would be given some fruit. And when she finished that, she started preparing the dinner. She would be cleaning the vegetables, the meats and whatever, preparing the dinner. So she got everything out of the way early. And doing the housework too. She'd be cleaning the house. And while she was working in the kitchen or cleaning the living room or whatever, or the bedroom, she would be singing most of the time. She'd be singing. So, if you was raised in an environment like that, where your mother sung as she worked, was singing while she was working, and she wasn't moaning. These weren't mournful songs. They were pleasant songs. She'd be singing pleasant songs while she was working. And the attitude that we have toward work means a lot. If we had the right understanding of work, in nature, work is an exercise. Your body needs that exercise. We'll go out and we'll spend hours jogging to exercise and develop the body, to have a fit body. But we won't spend the same length of time, we won't spend hours trying to find a way to be gainfully employed. They tell us there are no jobs and we give up. We need jobs. Our men need jobs. You need to exercise. I did a very surprising thing. I told a large gathering of our people in Chicago, I said, look, we have no jobs, a serious problem. I know it's a serious problem. But until something can be done about it, I said, I have an answer for you. I said, go out and find some work. And if you can't find any work, someone's windows to wash, someone's walls to wash, furniture to clean, whatever you can do, house to be painted. So if you can't find anything to do, then go to some brother or sister or neighbor or friend that needs the house painted or the windows washed, and ask them, can you do it for them? Do it for nothing. And boy, oh boy, the place got so silent. I said, do it for nothing. I said, they are working. I said, you'll be helping them. They can't get around to washing the windows. They're working. You're doing nothing. You're idle. I said, so you help them. I said, in helping them, you'll be getting some fulfillment. The work need will be in some measure fulfilled. You have helped them. So you come back, you don't have a paycheck, but you have something that your nature needs. You have something that your nature needed. You've been given something. Your nature feels good now. You can come back home. I said, if you keep doing that, God will bless you to do that and get a paycheck. Well, I told them that. I met a brother just about 2 months ago. He reminded me of that talk I gave. He said, I did it. And he told me that he's in business now and he's very successful. He has his own business and he's very successful. So the attitude toward work, the attitude toward property, all has a lot to do with whether we are successful in life or failure in life. Not to mention the attitude toward our children. Now, I believe that we've already been told that the biggest problem we have is the problem of youth, unemployed youth, and the destruction that is in the life of our youth. Men, fathers who have children, here is something very simple you can do, and I'm sure you'll feel good doing it. Let your children see you working. If you're employed, that's excellent. That's excellent. That's so wonderful. Let your children see you working. Ask the boss, can you bring your children to work one day so they can see you on your job working? If you're self-employed, it's very easy. You don't have to ask anybody. Take the young men, take your young boys, even take the girls with you sometime. Let them see you working. Let them see what you do. They hear what you do. They hear you go to work. But with the life so crowded and so much nonsense in the life of the atmosphere and in the environment of the home and in the life of our children and our lives too, they don't give much thought to what you do. They just told you go to work. Let them see you working. Sometimes in the home there, you know, don't let someone else paint your house. If you can afford to, paint your own house so the children will see you and invite them to join you. Let them help you paint the house. Don't call in a carpenter all the time. If you can do it yourself, try to do it yourself. Unless you got the money to afford it, then help him, because he needs a job too. He needs to keep his business. So do call him if you got the money to do that. But if you don't, let your children see you do the work. Let them see you put in a new toilet. Let them see you fix the plumbing. Let them. You say, well, I can't do that. Get you some plumbing book instructions and try it. Let them see you try it. They'll think more of you trying and failing and calling the plumber later than they will of looking at you and seeing you do nothing but eat and come in the house fussing. Yeah. And someone says you work, but all they see is someone coming in the house eating and fussing. You know? So this is very important that we let our children see us work. And I'm not addressing any new thing that I have imagined. I'm going back to the foundation of civilization. The foundation of civilization. Civilization didn't come up from nowhere. Civilization came up from healthy, productive disciplines that were already in what we call primitive society. So let us go back to the foundation of civilization, the natural, healthy disciplines, and let us have a healthy relationship with our children, with our wives, with our children, with our neighbors. Let us have a natural, healthy relationship with them. And that will mean a lot for changing the bad state of society that we have on us today. I don't give up in the face of the great numbers of unemployed youth that we have. I don't give up. I don't turn to government first. I turn to myself first. I try to see, can I give some employment to my children or my friend? He's in a bad situation, no job. He has children. I go and I talk to my friend, and I try to give him some advice. I try to give him some help. Because much that is missing in our life that we want in our life, it can be had if we will only question the way we think. You're not going to get much help from the entertainment world. You're not going to get much help from your friends in the streets, because all the society are burdened by the same problem. The society, the members of the society are burdened by the same problem. Rarely will you get the kind of help you need from a member of the society, or even from the institutions that we have. Rarely will you get the kind of help that we need to address a need for respect in us for nature, respect in us for creation, respect in us for work, respect in us for property. I'm going to conclude this talk by sharing with you a perception that I think is not limited to Muslims or Muslim religion, but I think that all the great religions have this same perception. It might be confused and hard to discover in the texts of the teachings of these great religions, but it's there. And that is this: God is creator. For the people of faith, God is creator. The creation then is the work of God. Christians, Muslims, Jews, we all know how the prophets have studied the creation and marveled over the wonders of creation. And it has been the wonders of creation that have made them appreciate the unknown or unseen Lord, creator of all that, and get closer to him, or try to get closer to him. We all know about that, Muslims, Jews, Christians, and Muslims. The same creator that gave us our scriptures created this universe. The laws of this universe, the universal laws, the natural laws of matter, are the creation of that one Lord and Creator. Shouldn't that make us respect, if we really believe in the Lord Creator, shouldn't that make us respect the creation? Make us have a healthy appreciation for creation, for the natural environment, for the raw world of nature? I will go further to say, God has not only given us the revelation and the secret wisdom, God has given us science. Science is also the gift of God. Man cannot get true science without a respect for the true nature and workings of God's creation. He cannot get it. Where should we go from here? We should go to doing more soul searching, question our thinking in light of what should be done about the evils in our world that are troubling us most. unhealthy race consciousness, disrespect for family life, criminal behavior, destructive behavior. We should question our own thinking and see maybe if the way I think as a race-minded person might have something to do with it. I might be contributing to these problems, keeping these problems in existence. We should think maybe the way I treat creation, the way I treat property may have something to do with it. The way I treat my own self may have something to do with it. You know, health is a very serious thing. These things are all tied together when it comes to problems in the world. Unemployment, ignorance, bad health, disrespect for valuable things. All of those things go together. You are turned down at an employment office, or there's no job in your neighborhood, it may have something to do with one of these serious concerns that we need to respect. It may have something to do with it. You won't be turned down only because you don't have the ability to do a job. Many times an employer will welcome the opportunity to train you for the job, to wait until you can grow into the job. But if you're half crazy because you're taking drugs, if you're not physically healthy, then what he wants with you? If you have a criminal record, he's afraid to hire you. So let us not blame everything on the system directly. Let us search our own selves. And I'm not excusing the system. I'm not excusing the government. No, this address is not to excuse any body or any institution that should accept responsibility. And all of our institutions should accept responsibility, and all of our religions should accept responsibility. All of us should accept responsibility. But I'm pointing to an area that I think is very critical, and that is our own thinking, our own attitudes, our own perceptions. Thank you very much. Peace be on you.
Thank you very much. We will take a short break and bring a panel to talk about where do we go from here and address some of the issues that Imam Mohammed talked about. We'll be back in just one moment. Welcome back to our special presentation entitled, Where Do We Go From Here? And answering that question, as Imam Mohammed stated, we have to ask, have we achieved what we set out to achieve? And with me to discuss that are Patricia Gray, Pat Gray with the NAACP. She's the Little Rock Board, well, she's with the State Board of Higher Education with the NAACP. And I also have Hayward Battle, an attorney, a minister, and also the chair of the Board of Directors for the Urban League. And of course, we have Imam Worthdeen Mohammed. Thank all of you for joining us here. I think we have to address the question, have we achieved what we set out to achieve? And we have to ask, what exactly did we set out to achieve in the civil rights movement, and even prior to that, when the Urban League and the NAACP were formed? And I'll address that question first to Mr. Battle. And what exactly did we set out to achieve?
I think Imam Worthdeen Mohammed stated it very succinctly, and that is that yesterday we were devoted to the freedom movement. We sought to be free from oppression. We sought to have the freedom to go to any establishment, eating establishment or otherwise, that we had the money to go to. But I think now, I don't think that we've really obtained all of the goals that we set for ourselves, because what good does it do an individual to have a right to go to an eating establishment, but you don't have the job and the wherewithal to pay for that meal, or to pay for that suit of clothing. So now I think the thing has shifted to more of an economic struggle, and that is one of the reasons that the Urban League has established as its goal parity by the year 2000. When you look at the numbers, any way you slice it, black income versus white income, that gap is widening steadily. The unemployment rate, when you compare it among black males and white males, it's widening. Even the unemployment rate among our teenagers. So we need parity. We need jobs. We need to be paid for an equal day's work. We need to be paid adequately for it. So we need parity in the economic spectrum. We need parity in education. We thought that if we integrated the schools, that would be enough, that our children would obtain a good education. But now that they're desegregated, we find that we're still having gaps in our test scores. So obviously, just sitting next to a white kid is not enough. There are some things that we have to do, but I like what he said about examining ourselves, because we need to look inward to many of the problems that we face today. When you look at how well our children are doing in school, I think that the family, we need to take responsibility for educating our own children. We need to look at even the crime rate in our neighborhoods. Most of the, particularly here in the state of Arkansas, blacks comprise approximately 16% of our state's population, but we make up about 50% of our state's prison population. You know, these are some very real concerns, and most of those crimes are black on black crimes. So there are some things that we need to do for ourselves. We need to get a healthy respect for work, as he said. We need to get a healthy respect for property. We need to have a healthy respect for creation. So no, we've not achieved the goals that we've set for ourselves, but I think that the landmark is laid, and we have a direction that we need to go toward.
Ms. Gray, being with the NAACP, where do you think we should be headed, and do you think, and your organization think, that we have achieved what we set out to achieve?
Well, first of all, the NAACP's mission from the very beginning has been to infuse the minority population, as it is called, but it is not, but to infuse African Americans with a sense of realism about the United States. And in fact, the main goals of the NAACP have been to bring about equality in education, equality in housing, equality in all aspects of the community. The important thing that the NAACP has done over the last 80-some years is to bring civil rights to the forefront by cooperation with other community groups. And I think the NAACP has always been recognized as a coalition builder. In other words, we've never stood out there on the front lines by ourselves. We've always cooperated with other community groups, and to do this, what we have commonly done is to set certain focus areas. The main one at this time, I think, for us is probably in the area of education, because one of the things that we must do with young people is to make sure that they have the self-esteem, not only the education, but the self-esteem to want to progress and to want to do more. So I think that the NAACP's mission from the beginning has been to bring about equality, but at this point we are more concerned, I think, about education and bringing about that self-esteem, because that's the only way we will feel equal.
Being that we can all agree that we have not achieved, Imam Mohammed, why do you think that with the Urban League, with the NAACP, all of the movements that we've had, why do you think we still have not achieved what we set out to do in the beginning?
Because we've been taken off track by happenings in the society. Events, the turn of events, political turns of events, turns of events in the civil rights movement caused by problems in society, changes of party leadership from in the White House, Democrats, Republicans, changes like that sometimes takes us off track, problems of violence in the streets, black on black crime was just mentioned. All these developments that add problems to problems. they take our focus away from the original focus. And the original focus was to be honorable people. The slaves, they had a desire to be free and honorable, free and noble people. We were raised in our homes, most of us, to be honorable, to be honest, to be honorable, to have self-respect, to respect others. But these developments take us off course. They take the focus away from that concern. Well, I think the main reason why that these organizations haven't achieved what they set out to achieve is owing to the tendency on the part of man is natural. That when something happens excitable in his life, or exciting, then his attention is drawn to that. And if we don't have someone watching, you know, I think all scriptures say you must have a watch, right? Keep the watch on folks, you know. If we don't have watchmen, and that's what they are. They are watchmen. These institutions are watchmen for us. But the problem, the nature of society and these big cities, modern cities, is of such that we all have to work together. And the biggest failure has been right at home. Now, I'm not blaming the church or the mosque or synagogues. I don't think the Jews have too much of a problem, maybe because their numbers are not too obvious. But for Christians and Muslims, I know we do have a problem. Our home life is not what we want it to be. I don't think we can blame our religion for that. We have to blame something else for it. We blame the order of society for it. When children are encouraged to listen to TV, to watch TV, and spend time this show, and the shows are made so attractive to them, and the children are encouraged to have fun, you know, just have fun, listen to music and have fun. And those influences are too strong for the parents. They're too strong for any one of us or any combination of us. Those influences are just too strong. So I think we have to look at many reasons for it. One reason is that I think the main reason is that some events just take place, the turn of events, and it's too much for us, they overwhelm us, and attention is taken away from purpose. Another problem is that we don't have responsible people in these big industries. They let music destroy the life of people. It shouldn't happen. Then we have to fight for generations almost to clean up the music industry, you know. But this is all life, this is natural. I'd rather live in the wilderness than to live in prison somewhere else.
Let's take a look at some of the things that may be keeping us from achieving. Not to lay blame anywhere, but to look at the circumstances that we're in so that we can best figure out how we're going to come about solving our problems. On our first session, we talked about racism. Is it still alive? NAACP.
I think it's very much alive. I think we see it every day. All we have to do is turn on the television, read the newspaper. I think that the current administration has shown us new elements of racism. Much of the racism is showing up in court decisions. It's showing up in court appointments on the federal level, and so racism is very much alive. And while we often look to politics as the only place that we might be able to distinguish racism, we see it every day in Little Rock. I mean, in Arkansas, we see it across the state. We see it in many cases in the way, say, that money missing at UA Fayetteville is treated versus money missing at UAPB. So racism is everywhere.
Oh, I'm inclined to agree. Absolutely. It's very much alive and well, and seemingly will be during our lifetime, particularly within the past 8 to 10, 12 years of the Reagan administration. We've seen a recurrence of a resurgence of racism. You've seen the Ku Klux Klan come out and be more visible, and even here in the state of Arkansas, they're building a national headquarters for that particular organization. It's almost fashionable now. There was a time when, particularly in the 60s and the 70s, it was not, but people are comfortable with their racism today, and I think in that from that aspect, we're regressing. Rather than banishing it from our society, we're seeing a resurgence of it, even on our college campuses, and those are supposed to be places of enlightenment. So certainly it gives pause for great concern on our part.
Having done the first show and taking a look at racism, I had some concerns that racism goes both ways, that there are African American racists. Interviewing David Duke in Walnut Ridge, he said that he's the founder of the NAAWP, the National Association for the Advancement of White People, and it's no different from the NAACP. So if he is racist, so is that organization. So can we see, are there black racists, Imam Mohammed?
Yes. I have experienced life in my home as a child, and though I give great credit to the intentions and sincerity of Elijah Muhammad, the late leader, my father, who passed in 1975, February of 1975, I have to be truthful with you. The kinds of teaching that I was given as a child in my home was very much like the kinds of teachings that we know that is given to children who were children of the Ku Klux Klan members, you know. Very similar. In fact, maybe in some respects it might have been even more dangerous. The reason why we don't feel the effects of that kind of racism, black racism that was in our teachings, and it was made sacred and holy. And I believe for many of these Klan people, their racism was made sacred and holy, you know, by their religion, their interpretation of their religion. I know that there is black racism, and the influence of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad's teaching on race has gone far and wide, even into parts of Africa right now. And there was big trouble in Trinidad because of a person who had been influenced by that kind of thinking. Again, I don't want us to think that the Honorable Elijah Muhammad's teachings has had more negative effect than positive effect. His teachings have had much more positive effect on the life of black people, African American people, and the other people of the African family in other parts of the world. His teaching has much more positive effect than negative effect, but we have to admit that there is a serious racism, a racist teaching, and that makes racists of people that have weaknesses for it. Now, if you don't have a weakness for it, you come out like I did. I came out pretty good. But if you got a minute to give me, another minute to give me, I think there's something that we observe, and I'm sure many of us observed. I'm sure Mr. Hayward Battle, and I'm sure Pat Gray too have observed this, that whites, sometimes they like for you to think that their treatment is racist treatment, and they're nothing but just a low-life scoundrel booger. But they would like to hide their ugliness under something they think is more acceptable, racism.
What effect do you all think that, if any effect at all, the newfound African Americanism, if I may say, is having on our kids and on society as a whole? We are seeing many more whites coming out for their race, and we're seeing blacks coming out for their race. Do you think possibly the teachings of your father and of Malcolm X, who believed by any means necessary, that the kids that are growing up today are beginning to really believe by any means necessary, and that they are harboring that racism that it may not be good for the community, for people as a whole?
Yes, to some degree, that's happening. But most of the youngsters that I see that are influenced by Malcolm's raw, very bitter, cutting words, I don't think they are just influenced by that language alone. I find that most of them are also influenced by the positive and sobering kinds of things that Dr. King said, that I'm saying, and many of others, Mr. Battle is saying. So they're not just one-track minded, I don't think. Most of these youngsters, and I'm meeting them, most of these youngsters that are following, influenced by Malcolm's I would say very militant and sharp, cutting language, they're thinking. I think they're thinking more than the kids that are just listening to the music and carrying the boxes upside their ears, you know. I do believe that. There is a danger, what I'm saying, there is a danger, but I think that it's not a danger that we have to worry that much about. I think maybe a lot of good future leaders are going to come out of this new development that we see in the youth. A lot of them coming from the streets, and they're accepting a more disciplined life. They're trying to be dignified. I think we ought to have patience with that, watch it, but have patience with it, and maybe a lot of good may come out of it.
You speak about, in your book, strategic withdrawal, and what we see is we have African Americans wanting schools for African American boys, and we have African Americans wanting to separate to have their own, to find their own identity. Talk to us for a moment about the strategic withdrawal that you speak about, and what's the difference in that and segregation, or us pulling back from the community to do what we need to do.
Yes, you know, in battle strategy, just because the leader of the army says let's retreat, it doesn't mean he's a coward all the time. It doesn't mean he's being defeated all the time. He may be retreating to a better position from which he can strike, you see. And I think that we ought to look at some of the positions that we have had so long and how we've been treating problems so long. And maybe a good battle strategy may suggest to us, or indicate to us, that we need to retreat from that kind of posture, retreat from that position, retreat from that focus on the problem, and find one from which we can get better results. That's the idea there. Mm-hmm.
Out of all the problems that we're having as African Americans, I think the main thing that keeps coming up and what the real problem is economics. Is that the real problem, Mr. Battle?
Well, that's certainly one of the problems, but another that Eman just struck home on, and that is this idea of respect for ourselves, respect for our families, respect for our communities. It doesn't do one very much good to have monies if he doesn't respect himself, doesn't respect his heritage. A man with money will simply go out and sell his heritage to obtain more if money is going to be his sole motivation. But we have to get back to a healthy respect of oneself, our values, our heritage, our family, our property, a respect for creation. And then when we get those kinds of foundations in place, then certainly we can give attention to the economic strata. But if a man doesn't have that healthy respect, if he has money, he'll just spend more money on the wrong kinds of things, more money on drugs, more money on alcohol, more money abusing himself. So we need to get some basics in place, and then we can come to terms with the economic problems that stand before us.
Talking about basics, an awareness of self, self-respect, what is it going to take for us to get that individually? Is it religion? Anybody?
I think that's a start. You know, people fail to realize that the civil rights movement, in a very real sense, was a spiritual movement. It was good against evil. It is no coincidence that the leaders of that movement happened to be spiritual men. They sought to fight hatred with a spiritual force of love. And so in a very real sense, many of the evils that we're facing today is spiritual warfare, and we're going to have to fight it with spiritual weapons. Yeah. That's the way you win spiritual wars, with spiritual weapons. I think that the churches and the mosques, I think that they play a very key role in addressing many of the problems that we face as a people.
Imam, if you were here to talk religion, if you were here to give a message of religion to people, what would you say?
Take the best of your religion, just like you should take the intelligence dictate we should take the best of anything. Take the best of your religion. Each man in his religion should take the best of his religion.
What we're going to do now is take questions from the audience. If you have any questions, please come to the microphone, come to the side of the stage, and Martha will let you come up to the microphone. Any questions that you may have for any of our guests, you're welcome to come up and ask those questions at this time. We're talking set out to achieve, and if you have questions, you may ask them now. Mrs. Majid.
And to the other panel members.
I think it may need to be switched up. Yeah, turn on your mic. There you go.
Okay.
Thank you.
I'm going to direct my statement, maybe a question, at a statement that you made earlier, because I'm really trying to examine myself and where I'm going from here, because I would like to know where do we go from here. You mentioned getting the self-esteem so we feel equal. I have a real problem, and I'm wondering if that's a problem with just more than myself or us as a people, feeling like we have to do something to feel equal. I feel like God created me like he did everybody, and I already feel equal, and I'm wondering if that's where we spend a lot of our time, wasting our time.
Let me just say this, Ms. Majid. I understand what your problem is. Let me explain what I meant by that. What I mean is, unfortunately, a lot of young black children do not feel equal. Okay?
Why though?
Why don't they? I think they don't feel equal because, unfortunately, a lot of the media that they see, whether it is through the advertisements on TV, whether it's through the advertisements in the print media, when you see something good or when you see something that's supposed to, even for young people, teenagers, if you see something that's allegedly sexy, a lot of times it's going to be with long blonde hair and blue eyes. And I'm not saying that this affects all young black people, but I'll tell you one thing. One of the reasons that I think the African American movement, as far as teaching young people more about their heritage, taking it back to Africa, and even just taking it all the way in the United States and examining everything that has happened good in this country, that does help a lot of the young kids, because unfortunately what I've seen, a lot of kids don't have the right self-esteem. When they look at a black doll and they look at a white doll and they choose the white doll, to me, that's not good self-esteem. And
I agree with you totally. I guess and I appreciate Imam Mohammed for making the statement concerning attitudes, because I think that directly lets us as adults know we have a responsibility for our children to feel equal, not because you forget the media, but because God created us. And until we teach our children that, if we feel that way ourselves, I think we're going to still have some of the problems. But
but all parents don't teach their children. You see, that's part of the problem. A lot of kids are raised by the TV. A lot of young working mothers are out. They have no one to watch kids. They don't have time to teach kids. The kids don't go to the church or to the mosque, and so therefore they formulate their ideas about themselves based on what they consistently see.
So then we could probably say that one thing we could do as we leave here, and one direction would be for us as adults to all understand and believe that we are created equal by God, and if we can just get that into our children, we can solve a lot of the problems.
I agree.
Imam Mohammed, I want to also thank you for making reference to the young people today and the positive. You're about the first person I've heard in a long time say something positive about today's young people. I know that there's a way for them. I know that we as adults have to take the time and the responsibility to make sure that they see the way, so I appreciate that.
Thank you, Sis Majid.
Have we not always given our children the message that they're created equal? No. Not always?
I feel that many of us have had that understanding early on, but unfortunately, it is not going to cross the board. Another thing that I think can contribute to this is the fact that with integration throughout the years, we have not had as many black teachers. In Arkansas last year, 33% of the teachers, only 33% of the black teachers taking the NTE passed. That's not good. But what happens is that testing procedure also eliminates more black teachers getting into the pool. And what happens is that when kids are in classrooms where there are only 2 blacks, or there could be 20 blacks, but a white teacher who may not care, then they are not, they're not hugged when they do well, they're not rewarded, they're not giving those self-esteem building type of responses that they need. So I think at one time, maybe when we went to school, it was that way, but I don't think it always is that way now.
Coming from an education point of view, is separation what's needed to get back to our people teaching our children, or do we need to continue and change, put Afrocentric curriculum into the public school districts?
I think, and I'm speaking for myself at this point because I can't tell you what the whole body of the NAACP feels, but I can tell you this, that I think that here in Little Rock we're very concerned that the teachings, the Afrocentric teachings, are included and infused into the school curriculum. At this point in time, it is not that way, and I think that is very important. Personally, I do not feel that being totally separate accomplishes anything either, because young people have to learn what they're working with, who they're working with, and that is the only way, in my mind. I think we need more supplements. I think we need more things after school, on weekends, more groups doing what groups are doing now, the many good things that the group Dignity is doing. They're bringing a lot of self-esteem back into kids, and I mean, it's a supplement to education.
What are we going to do, the Urban League of Arkansas and the NAACP of Arkansas, to make sure that those supplements are in the classrooms? What can we do to make sure that our kids are getting that Afrocentric curriculum? Mr. Battle?
Well, one of the things that we're concerned about is the suspension rate, particularly with the Little Rock School District. You know, it's not going to do any good to have your kids have an Afrocentric curriculum if the kids are being sent home at alarming rates. They're not going to be there to learn anything. And we're concerned about that because, just, you know, the school district may be 60–70% black, but when you look at the suspension rates, I'm talking about sending them home, they're out of schools, there is to the tune of 95%, and that's far too high. And we're going to have to address that. I'm concerned about having them available in class to have access to the education that's being provided. I think that we are going to have to become better involved in our school systems, not only from the PTA standpoint, but going down there to the Little Rock School Board and demanding that these curriculums be expanded. Because if you don't take an interest, you'll get what they want to give you, and that will too often will not suffice.
Okay, you have a question.
Imam Mohammed, Attorney Battles, Ms. Gray, moderator. I greet you all with the greetings of peace. Assalamu alaikum. I'd like to address this question to Imam Mohammed in specific, but in general to all of you. And Imam Mohammed brought up a very interesting and true point when he was talking about examining our own thinking and then reprogramming that. There is a lot of material out, and it seems to be the newest thing that people are pushing about reprogramming the mind and recognizing how to get the greatest strengths and benefits of that. And I mean on a professional level. You'll find educators going out to IBM and Xerox trying to get people to reprogram their mind to think past limitations. And sometimes I think we as a people do think in limited terms because we've been programmed like that. Is it possible for Imam Mohammed and this board to give us some guiding principles and concepts? And I know as Muslims we have, you know, the Quran and the, 5 pillars of faith. We have Imam, we have Salat, Zakat, Saum, and Hajj, which are belief in God, prayer, charity, fasting, and pilgrimage. And I know all religions have these guiding principles, but I'd like to hear from the panel what principles we could use to help reprogram not only our minds, but the coming generation so that we could be stronger to meet this challenge that is presented to us today.
Yeah. I see two developments. One is the world is becoming just one big living room. One world. When we talk about one world, that's what I'm talking about. One world where people have to live together and they have to deal with the problems of this one family, the human family. But with that is another development. That development is that every member of the family, the groups, more responsibility is because of that, is being placed on every group, every unit of society, every group and every individual person. More responsibility is going to come on us. So I think the one who is in an ideology, whether it's religious or not, one whose life is given to the structure of an ideology, whether it's religion or not, is better off than people who are just living in the winds of influences. You see? So that's the best condition. You mentioned religion. People who are serious about their religion and who, first of all, are honorable people. If you're not honest and honorable, you can be in religion and you'll be a worse enemy to society than the person who's not in religion. And the next thing I want to say is that private life is precious. Private life is precious. And private life begins with the most private thing. That's man and wife. But then the next circle of privacy is your family, right? That privacy extends to your neighbors, next door neighbor, your race. I think we should have a bit of respect for privacy. And I hope I didn't say too much.
Would you like to address that, Mr. Battle?
I think he's right on point, absolutely, particularly from the standpoint of the family. You know, that's one of the things that we as a race, that's where our problems start, with a breakdown of the families. You know, how can you expect him to respect authority figures when he's cussing his mama out? It starts at home, and we need to have a greater respect for the family. For mom and dad, and being honorable. When we came along, we said yes sir, no ma'am, and we're very respectful to any elder, not just your parents, to any elder. And it seems to me that we could learn a lot from that, getting back to the basics of respecting each other as individuals and as men and women of faith. And I would like to see that in our lifetime. And I think if we can get back to those kinds of basics, so many of the other problems that we have will become minuscule if we can overcome those kinds of problems.
So if I understand correctly, the collective wisdom of the panel is that we should start reprogramming to respect family life?
Absolutely.
And privacy.
And privacy. Thank you very much.
I want to add one thing, and it's an African proverb that says it takes a whole village to raise a child. And when you consider that, then your family life becomes an example, and everything you do kind of works toward the raising of young people.
Thank you very much.
If I may, Deborah?
Yes.
I think I don't think the seriousness of my concern for privacy is reaching.
Okay, elaborate on that.
Reaching you. I'll give you an example. I don't think it's racist to prefer that I raise my children up around members of my own race or in a neighborhood that's predominantly made up of the members of my own race. I don't think that's racist. I don't think it's racist to prefer that my young child goes into a classroom that's predominantly of my own race. Again, I don't think it's racist to hold my daughter back when she's invited to speak to a white stranger and tell a little caution daughter. I don't think that's racist. Thank you very much.
Well, would you... I guess I have to question that for just a moment. Would you think it's racist if a white held his daughter back from speaking to a black?
I would tend to think so because that's the way he's been behaving.
Well, when we behave in the same way, are we not then racists?
No. We have to be established for that kind of thinking first.
I have to come to a better understanding of that one. You have a question?
Yes, my name is Darlene Wally, and I'm from GIST House, which is a treatment, recovery, rehabilitation, behavior modification program. And my question is, what is being done in the communities to give back children's self-esteem to them from the peer pressure that they're experiencing from all the drug dealers and drug pushers, you know, because young teenagers, they want what they see another have, so that makes their low self-esteem there because of the dysfunctional homes. What is being done in the communities? That's my question.
Okay. I think that there are several things being done. A lot of it is being done through churches. A lot of it is being done through different business concerns, as far as programs that businesses have out in the community to help young people and try to focus young people in a direction that gives them more focus on maybe what their quality of life can be. I think also there are a lot of people who are doing things in other groups outside of businesses and churches. I know Mrs. Majid, who was up here earlier, I know that she has programs. I know Southwestern Bell, AP&L, a lot of the major companies have programs in town. But I know that most churches have youth groups, and I think that that is one of the places that it begins.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. When we take a look at all of the things that are going wrong and why we have not achieved, I think we have to look at what we're going to do to achieve. And yes, we need to look within ourselves, but how do we actually get to that point? It's hard to think. Everybody has to find the answer within themselves, but how does one get to that point?
My son, recently, about, I guess, a month ago, we haven't been able to communicate. We hadn't been able to communicate with this son, Sadi, favorite son, for years, since he was about maybe 12 years old. He's 19 now. And I decided to spend more time with him. So I'm spending time with him and taking abuses, you know, and not calling the police. So one day he came to me and he confronted me and he started in on me, and I've had the patience of listening. And he said, "Daddy, wait a minute." He said, "Don't answer that." He said, "I'm only rebelling." Now, I don't know if that's the answer for everybody, but sometimes we just have to be willing to make great sacrifices. You know, we beat these children up. We beat them up by not giving them the right guidance. We've beaten them up by not coming to their rescue when they needed us. We've been beating them up. So sometimes if we have patience with them and show them we love them and let them beat them up, let them go on, get some of the frustration out on us and just suffer with them, you know, and love them and let them know you're there. But be strong morally. Be strong, but stay there and be willing to take some abuse, and maybe many of these children will do the same thing Sadi did, will see their own troubles. So it's not always by telling somebody you need to question your own thinking. Sometimes we just need to give them a situation. They need a situation for change.
And you have a question.
Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum assalam.
To Imam Mohammed, to the board, I'd like to address the question to Imam Mohammed. My name is Brother Kareem. I have been experiencing a lot of activity with the community, with dignity, and down at the penitentiary as imam down to Riceville Unit. And I have seen a lot of times where when we approach a lot of people, there have been a lack of faith. And I remember a time when the USA had mentioned once that a problem with a lot of families and in the community and in the system was the lack of faith. Do you think that that problem has been a major addition to our development of lack of understanding as parents and the lack of understanding as adults?
Yes, sir. Yes, definitely so. You know, you can still be conscious of yourself as a person of faith, but that doesn't mean that you're really a person of faith. We can be conscious of ourselves as Muslim or whatever, but that doesn't mean necessarily that we are really a person of faith. To be a person of faith, you have to really believe in God. You have to really believe in something. And I think there has been just bold, outright attacks upon every sacred thing that people believe in, made by this culture that we see as a straying and errant, error-making culture, you know, some of the American culture. The cultural life of the American people has allowed this, that every sacred thing be disrespected publicly before our little children and everybody. And that has damaged, I think, faith in us. So it's a big problem. We're not going to solve these problems with one solution or by approaching them from one direction. We have to have many directions and many solutions. It's not that simple.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. When we talk about culture, how much of what we as African Americans do is our culture, and how much of it is European, and what difference does that make? What is the effect of having and doing things from a Eurocentric point of view than doing them from an African point of view?
Yes. I'm not one to look to race and the past life of a race for cultural life and cultural disciplines. So I don't belong to that group. Let me make that clear right now. I don't want to go back to the fetus, you know, and be the fetus. I like being out of the womb and free. So I don't want to back up in the road of evolution. And I think many who go back to primitive African culture are backing up in the road of evolution. The best place for cultural foundation is your home. And nature puts in the mother the good treatment, the good spirit, the good attitude for bringing about the home culture. So if we concentrate on that home culture, I think we'll have naturally forming an African American culture in time.
Okay. You want to come on up with your question? If going back to primitive Africa is not where it is does it matter if we're called Black or African American?
Yes, I think so. I don't like the charge words, color charge words like black and white. I don't like that language. I prefer African American. You know, I believe that on the whole, you can find more people of the European family in America without the problem of color consciousness than you can find among us. And I'll tell you why I believe that. Because really, when they see each other, identify with each other, they don't identify with each other. It's only when they see us that they are white. They're Irish, or they're Italian, or they're something else. They're Jew. But only when they see us, they're white.
You have a question?
I have a comment, and I guess I came in right at the time.
Why don't you speak to the mic? Yeah, thank you.
I just want to say that I'm honored to be in you guys' presence, and I try to be a symbol of what was expected, you know, from long ago. Like I was there during the marches, one of the babies at that time, you know, and I've come a long ways, and my mother has passed, which she passed long ago, and so I've, you know, made my life, I've tried to be strong and to be what you guys wanted, you know, all these years. And right now, I've been working a long time, but, you know, recently going into the work field, I feel that the work field takes me as a threat. I'm a threat. So I'm not really, you know, education is still necessary, and I'm just keep saying what you're saying because there's somebody listening, you know, and I'm not the only one. I was one of the babies that were there doing all of the segregation and the marches, and so I listened to your dad, different states and here in Arkansas too. But just keep on saying what you're saying, because somebody else is listening too. I need a degree.
Thank
Appreciate the encouragement.
Thanks.
Thank you. Thank you. And you have a question.
Hi, I'm Dolores Bryant, and I think as I've listened to each of you, I think the consensus of the panel has been that where we need to go from here is to somehow, some way, bring our young people back to respect for the family, respect for work, respect for our race, and etc. My question now is to NAACP and to Urban League, what do you think your role and responsibility is to help us bring our young adults, young children, what have you, into that respect? What can you do? And then the last question is, do you think that the government has a role to the African American people in that respect?
Yes. And when you say you, do you mean as an organization?
Yes.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Yes. Let me answer the last question first.
Okay.
I do think that the government has a role. The government had a role in 1897 when it established segregation as kind of the law of the land in education. So the government has a role now in making sure that all Americans have equal access to grants, to loan programs, to specific types of education, to housing. So I think the government has a role to make sure that all ethnic groups have equal access to everything that America offers. So I think the government continues to have a role. What can the organizations do? Number one, I will say on behalf of the NAACP, I think the organizations, as do many of the community organizations, we need more people in those organizations, dues-paying members, so that we can support the programs that the organizations carry on. When people ask the NAACP to come out and help them because they feel that they've been, I don't know, mistreated on the job, mistreated in buying a house, mistreated in the school, that is one of the ways that the NAACP can rise to the occasion and help. By showing young people and their parents that we're there for them, but also we need the support of those very people asking.
I agree with that, but, and in addition to that, some of the things that we've done, any number of our board members go out to schools and talk to classes. I know that during the school year that's a regular part of my agenda. I leave my law practice and I go and I talk to young people, give them a hope and give them a vision of what their lives can be in this day and this time in spite of the obstacles, because they still need to hear that it's possible to rise above one's circumstances and they still can be all that God intended that they be. They need to hear that message. It never grows old. That was one of the things that I was told even as a very young child from my grandmother. We chopped cotton and picked cotton, but I was always told that I could be whatever I wanted to be. And I was told that enough until it sunk in, and I believe that. I believe that in spite of my circumstances, I could be whatever I want to be. We go to the schools with that message. More than that, we're still concerned about the educational initiatives. We're going to be looking at the suspension rate I alluded to earlier in the Little Rock School District in particularly. And one of the things that really concerns me is that we need to let our children know that we care about them. We need to take the time, as Imam has stated, we need to take time with them to let them know that they are important, that we care about what they're going through, and be there for them. That's one of the reasons that this deal in Panky, when they went out and destroyed that school, that I became so heatedly and so fervent about that, because that was our children. You know, anybody can put up a basketball and tell our children to go play ball, but we need to be concerned more about what's on the inside as opposed to those outward skills. We need to be concerned about their development emotionally and psychically. We need to be concerned about the whole of our children. And I think that that's really the message that we carry. And we do that by more than just going to the schools and giving a message. We do it by example as well, letting them know that we support those things that are dear to us, letting them know that we're supportive of those things that are good. And I'll say this and I'll close. One of the things that I do, particularly when I go to Philander Smith, you know, so many of our black colleges and universities are suffering financially. And just think of all of the black graduates that have gone through there and they've gotten jobs. Too many of us don't put anything back. We got to learn to put something back in our communities. It's a poor farmer that will eat up all of his seeds and not put something back.
Thanks.
When we talk about the government, how much help and what should the government do? Some say now that the government has done so much, it has allowed us to stay on welfare. Some say that the government hasn't done enough, we need to be paid reparations. What is the role of the government? What should the government do to help us achieve what we set out to in the beginning?
I think, first of all, self-help is preeminent. I think that there are a lot of things that we must do for ourselves. I mean, the government does not come in and tell us to let our kids watch 40 hours of TV a week, okay? So there's some things, and it all goes back to, you know, I hate to keep repeating, but it all goes back to what Mr. Mohammed said, and that is making sure that family life is in place and making sure that kids are being taught outside of just watching TV. But there are other things that I think is very important that the government do, and I think those areas are when it comes to making sure that minorities do get equal access, African Americans, all people that are considered to be minorities in the United States by their terms, have equal access to contracts, have equal access to loans, equal access to housing. I think it goes back to ensuring that we are given what everyone else has.
Imam Mohammed, is there a certain role of
yes,
the government?
The government definitely should have a role. The problem that I see, and I think when I say I see, I'm just looking, I'm seeing myself with many others that seeing the same thing, is that we have gotten into the groove of just turning to the government for all answers, you know, and she just said we have to have it be self-supporting too. The problem is turning to government for everything, you know, thinking that government has to solve all of our problems. It can't solve all our problems. Government is limited. We have this democracy limits what government can do for us. President John Kennedy, remember he said, don't ask what and he got in big, didn't he? He said, don't ask what the government can do for you, but ask what you can do for your government. I mean, I use the term government. Yeah. Now, I think the government should have a big role in our lives. It's just there to be filled, it's waiting to be filled. When you have the city of Chicago sanitation department spending a great amount of money that they spend to take garbage out of the poor neighborhoods. If we can't handle it, the government ought to come in and make a law that your garbage better reflect your income.
Then we wouldn't have any garbage, would we? Not much. Your question.
My name is Calvin Crine, and I have an open question for the panel. I'd like for the panel to address the indigenous of our social order, which is the Afro-American people, which is directly the hindrance to our autonomy, which would solve a lot of the problems. I understand the culpability of the words using here about what is equal, what isn't equal, but what we have to do is address our own indigenous, which will lead to these other things. The second part of the question is, are we failing to realize that our indigenous depends directly on Afro-Americans staying in their community to address this problem?
Who'd like to start with that question?
First part. Let me address the part that I'm pretty sure that I understood, and that was about African Americans staying with the community to address some of their problems. And we may need him to repeat that. I'm not sure about you all. But at any rate, I do think one of the ways that we stay with our community is that we do business with our community. I mean, whether it's our photographer or our caterers or whatever we do, you know, when we can do business in our community, I think it's important that we do. And I'm sorry, sir, I did not really get the first part of your question. So
I think part of the thrust of the question too had to deal with living in the community, and I understood a man to make the comment that he doesn't think that it's racist to want to live in an all-black community, and neither do I. I think that that's good. At the same time, that I think that your community is really where your heart is. You know, there are some people that live in our community, but they're not making any contributions to it. In fact, if they're out selling drugs, they're littering, and they're destroying our communities, and they'd be better off out of the community. Your community is where your heart is. And I guess I take that position because I happen to live in a predominantly white neighborhood, but my heart is still here, and that's why I have a commitment and I spend the time to put something back, as I alluded to earlier. I think that's so important. Doesn't matter where you live, it matters where your heart is and where your concern is. And if you're willing to put something back into the community that you come from.
Hi, my name is Karen. I'm from the Just House, the Behavior Modification Program. Okay, we already know that the African American society is God conscious in general. And once we start taking that step to give it back to the younger kids, to show them the love, but they're not getting it from home because their parents are lost, what steps will y'all take to help that child?
That's an excellent question, and that's why I get back to going back to the schools. You know, so many of our churches, we could teach the love of God and teach our children that they are created equal in the image of God. We could teach them that if they came to our churches, but so many of these children are not in our churches because many of their parents are not in our churches. So what we have to do is go where they are and carry that message, and that's why I think it's important. They're in schools because the law requires that they be here, and that's why it's important that we take that message to the school where we can find them. And there are other organizations, like one of my board members has Teen Talk, where he gets young people to come in and talk about their problems. And there are other organizations and efforts of that kind, and we have to do that because we're about to lose an entire generation. We have to reach back and bring them out of the oblivion that so many of them face, but we're gonna have to make that special effort.
Yeah, I think the government too the government needs to search its own thinking too. How has it been handling problems? Is there a better way to handle problems? I didn't always have a father in my house, you know. I had a strong mother in my house, and there was always a male member that I could turn to, like I turned to a father, an uncle, a grandfather, or somebody. The government, since it pays the woman, the single household, a housekeeper, whether it's a woman or man, even a man can get some money now if he has children. So why not help the woman by looking in the family first to see if there's a male in the family without a job, but he's a healthy male, will be good to be in that household to help the woman look out for her children. An uncle, a grandfather, a brother, and the government pay that person to be in the house with the children, to be the father image in that house with the children. You know, I think habits of the establishment coming from the slave days and plantation days are still disguised in the government attitude toward family life and their way of solving our problems. When they give checks to my wife and I can't find a job, that's a real problem. They should look for a male in the family to give the check to. And if he's not decent, why not spend some money on him? They're going to spend some money on him anyway when he goes in prison, right? You see? I'm for major changes in this government, this society. Major changes. And they should start right with us, the little people on the ground.
How can we make sure those changes are made, though? Little people on the ground making sure that government changes.
Yeah. You know, all you have to do is just get the interest started, and the government will soon come in. When they see it getting big, they'll come in and do the job, because they don't want the little people to get credit for it.
You have a question.
Yes, I had, you have been talking about the government, and when we talk about the United States, and it's supposed to be a government of the people, for the people, and by the people, and I look at the political process. What can we do as a people to get more out of the government if it's going to be for us? We know that we do not have any representation within the government, and especially the judiciary system. We go to the courts. Only thing you can find in the courts are Caucasians. They're on all the panels, and we can't get any justice out of the judiciary system. The political process, we can't get any justice out of that as far as job is concerned, as far as allocation of money to different communities and so forth. And a lot of people now, they don't even participate in the process as far as voting. In the voting process, we don't. It's to get on a jury, you got to be a registered voter. We don't even have our Afro-Americans registered to vote, and they don't participate. A lot of our churches tell us that the only thing we have to do is pray and wait on God. He'll come and change things for us, and they talk about pie in the sky when we die, and they don't think about we got to have some ham on the ground while we're around now. We got to have something to eat while we're here, so we need to do something ourselves while we're here now, and especially for our younger people. We cannot continue to hand down from year and from generation to generation welfare checks, food stamps, and things like that. They're a promise that they might get something if they keep on living. We need to try to, give them something, and especially the drug problem we have in our community. The drug problem is a problem that I think has been put into our community. We don't have any means of transporting drugs to this country. We don't have no land to grow drugs on, but all the individuals, all our young people are down in jail because of drug-related crimes. And I know Caucasian or European Americans, they bring these drugs out to the community, give it to our kids. They do this in a day and come back at night and arrest them for dealing in drugs. And they're the one, the police department and things like that, the undercover narcotic agent and things like that. They're the one, I think it's a form of genocide that they're using to destroy our family. If you ain't got men within your family, then you're not going to have a family. You keep locking all the men up, killing them all, then you're not going to have the reproduction process stop there. So what can we do to get some equal justice in the court, get some equal justice in the political process, so that we might be able to help our own people?
It's a loaded question.
First of all, I think we can vote.
Yes.
And for those of us who aren't registered, we can get registered to vote. But I think voting is one of the first steps. It is certainly not the only step, because once you vote and once you elect people, then you have to ensure, or certainly attempt to ensure, that they keep the promises that they made when they were running. And to do that, oftentimes it takes the extra step of writing letters, calling, or blocking in other ways. But voting and electing black legislators and black governors, black everything that you can, I think that's the first step.
I agree with what the brother said. It's almost as though he took a page out of my last campaign, because that was what I said, that if ours is to truly be a representative democracy, then our democracy must represent all of our people. We are represented in the legislatures of this country. We're represented in the executive branch by virtue of some of the department heads and employees and what have you. But when you go to our judicial system, the brother's right. You got white judges there sentencing people. You have them committing these brothers to the penitentiary. How do you get to the penitentiary? A circuit judge has to sign a commitment order. And you heard me allude earlier to the fact that over half the prison population down there are black. I guarantee you there weren't black judges that committed them to those institutions. That is not to say that they don't need to be there, but how do we know we need to be represented? at every level of our government, and we need some black judges to make sure that the judiciary is honest and make sure that it's fair. And I agree, you know, we talk about preaching the gospel and prayer. There's something else that the Bible says, that faith without works is dead. Right. You can pray all you want to, but you're going to have to put some feet to those prayers. God is not going to come down here and pull no level for you in no voting booth. God is not going to come down here and put a black on a judge on a bench. We're going to have to put some leg work and some hard work in addition to our prayers, because prayers without faith and without works is dead.
That's right. Okay. That's our religion too.
Okay, my question is to these two representatives of the organizations. And with me being in the public school system and being a strong young African American woman and sure of where I'm going to go, and not seeing any young African American males in my classrooms, makes me wonder, what is the public doing, or you Pacific organizations doing, to enhance and nourish the young males, because they need a lot of nourishment from a lot of places, and it's not going to just have to come from the homes. It's going to have to come from a lot of other places. And like the young man said, the reproductive system stops there when our young men are going to jail and doing all these kinds of things. So what are you specifically doing with the young African American males? I know that you said you are going to the schools, and all the females that I'm friends with, they are very sure of themselves. They know where they're going to go. But the majority of our young men, they look to lunch. That's all they do. They don't pay attention in class and all those kinds of things. So what specifically are you doing for the young men?
I think this is the third time this question has come up on what the organizations are doing. And we have both said we're looking into programs, we're looking into suspension rates, we're looking into education. But I think people are wanting to know, what exactly are you doing? And is what you're doing working? And if it's not, why aren't you doing something else?
I think part of the problem is what Pat alluded to earlier. Many of these organizations are struggling for their very survival, because so many of our black brothers and sisters don't become a part of these organizations and support them. So it's a cyclical thing. You have to support the organization to ensure its survival if it's going to help to address some of those concerns. And I can speak from that very pointedly, because 3 years ago the Urban League was virtually bankrupt. The doors locked and like to vanish from this community. But we got to support our own, and that was the message that I've been saying all along. Too many of these organizations are faltering by the wayside in spite of all of that they've done to help meet the needs and address some of these concerns, but we don't support them. I remember being in a setting very much like this, and the question was asked, how many members of the NAACP are there? Over half the organization, over half the people there were not members. How many members of the Urban League are there in this sitting? And there were even less. We're going to have to support these organizations if we want them to be around to really contribute to the problems that we face as a community. We got to put something back.
I'm aware that the Urban League and your organization done a lot, and you're doing a lot. But no one organization, no combination of organizations of the nature of your two organizations can solve these problems that we're addressing here by yourselves. It takes effort. All of us have to accept more responsibility.
Amen.
All of us. And it has to start right in our homes.
Absolutely.
The gentleman mentioned the drugs, problem. And I sympathize with him. If I was going to run for office, I might take a lot from his speech he made too at that mic, But we can't just move on emotions, It's true, we don't have any planes and no poppy farms to raise the drugs and to harvest the drugs and bring the drugs into this country. We don't have that, but we don't have the means either to supply the supermarkets with the food we eat every day. Somebody's doing that too. You see, so it's business. we ought to get strong in business. We get strong in business, then maybe we can have the power to decide what kind of business is going to be in our neighborhoods.
What? I can name at least two things right now that come to my mind that the NAACP in Little Rock has been doing. One took place in the first quarter of this year that I think was very good, and that was held at Philander Smith College. It was a youth extravaganza. It was a talent show. It was an opportunity for African American youth in the community to express themselves in various ways through poetry, through song, through dance. These are the types of things that build self-esteem. Because when the schools were not integrated, many times the schools always had opportunities for young black people to recite poetry by African American writers, to know their history and to demonstrate that to others, because self-esteem a lot of times is something that grows by doing something over and over, and you gain confidence in that way. Another thing that I know firsthand that our president is working very hard on, and then the whole group, and that is we have an education committee that is now working to assist black teachers who feel discriminated against in keeping their quality of life within their school system. In other words, not just having to go to work and feel battered by the Caucasian PTA groups who want to find every little nitpicky thing wrong, such as, well, she doesn't dress the way I want her to dress. So there are things that we're doing. A lot of things don't get a lot of publicity, but I can assure you that the NAACP is working on behalf of this community. But as I said again, we could always use more help.
That's true, and something that we did along those lines recently, the Urban League sponsored a group from the Delta, brought them to Little Rock and took them on an excursion of the Arkansas River and the zoo, because we were rewarding them for academic excellence. So many of the times our young people are not rewarded for performing well in schools, and they were rewarded. They have rewards. Some of the young people are hired as tutors to teach others. The better students are hired as tutors to teach the ones that are not doing quite as well. And we want to give them some tangible rewards for their academic pursuits. And we were very fortunate and very pleased to have sponsored them and to try and help and to encourage them. Those are the kinds of things that we're doing. But again, it takes funds to do that.
Going back to, there were two references to genocide and drugs being in the African American community. Do you all feel that if there is such a thing called genocide, that it is a conscious effort of a certain group of people to do away with another group of people? Is that a conscious thing that's going on, or is it just by chance that the African American community has the drugs and that we're killing each other?
I wouldn't suspect that the effect of drugs, the impact of drugs on our community, is the result of some conscious act or conspiracy. I would say no. But I believe that there are conscious efforts to destroy us by certain people, even maybe by certain groups. But they are not big enough to have that kind of effect, no. The problem is that we are not together ourselves, inwardly and even as a people.
I agree, and I think that if you want to talk about consciously trying to get rid of us, you have groups like the Klan, the Ku Klux Klan, the Arm and the Sword and the Shield, or whatever it's called. Those are the groups, but I believe that those groups cannot have the impact on us that drugs have on us.
Well, you know, when I look at it, I've heard the conspiracy theory. I don't buy it either. And it may sound callous, but a man made a reference earlier to the fact that drugs is big business in this country. It's big business. But in order for a business to survive, in order for a business to thrive, it has to have consumers. Safeway, Harvest Food will go out of business if folks stop going in there buying. Companies have to have consumers to survive. If there's a conspiracy, who says that we got to take part and buy the product of the conspiracy? Nobody's forcing us to go out and take drugs and put dope in our veins. Nobody's holding a gun to make us do that. I don't buy the conspiracy theory. If we stop buying drugs on a year, the drug pushers would they would pack up and go someplace else because they can't sell it here.
That's right. And that's happening. But the efforts and the people involved in it, the small numbers. But there are Christians and Muslims fighting drugs in the neighborhood. We're fighting together. In Dallas, Washington, D.C., I can name you several cities where the members of our religion and Christians have gone out and risked being killed. They're doing it now to let the drugs people know that they're not going to dominate the neighborhood. They're not going to decide the future of those youngsters, you know. That's happening right now. Need more of that, and the government supports that.
That's happening in Little Rock, too.
We only have a couple of minutes left, but what I want to leave with is, has our mission changed, and what should we be about now? What are we to set out from this day on to achieve, and how are we to do it? Mr. Battle.
I think that it starts with something very basic: respect for oneself, respect for one's family, respect for one's neighbor, respect for one's community. If we can start from the basics, that's the foundation of civilization. And we can do great things if we give the attention and have the proper attitude toward those basic values.
And Mrs. Gray?
I think that we need to make sure that our young people have a global focus, meaning that they understand and that we ourselves understand that we're not self-contained. When we talk about civil rights here, we also have to think about human rights in South America. We have to think about human rights all over the world. So I think that bringing ourselves to the realization that we always have to work with others everywhere.
And Imam Mohammed, in 1 minute.
Yes. I could have said just leave it like it is, because I'm very satisfied with what has been said. We have to let our children know, too, that everything, though free, lives within a context. There has to be a context for life. In other words, we are free, but we have to have a set of disciplines in our life in order to contain that life and allow us to make progress as an organism, as a human being, as a person.
Thank you very much. I'd like to thank Pat Gray from the NAACP, Hayward Battle from the Urban League, and our honored guest, Imam Worthdeen Mohammed. Thank you very much for joining us. Thank you. I'm Deborah Robinson.
Good show, Debbie. Good show.
Oh, yeah, it was.
Our door. I mean, high on the door too. I don't know how he got it there. But he's doing much better now. I can talk about it now. So, yeah, that was good too. D-E-H. Yeah, right, I know.
Yeah, great stuff. They told me to give you this. Okay. Good to see you.
Thank you.
I hope this won't be our last time meeting.
No, it will not be.
All right.
It will not be. I'll let you keep that so that we can finish there.
I got one. Yeah, because I'm thinking it's late, you know.
Okay.
And
Let me know and I'll cut